Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today is day 12 of my 30-day YouTube challenge. Day 12 and counting, 12 and counting. Okay, so I want to share with you something that I've been going through this year. Now, I'll start with this. I did not, up to now, up to this point, October the 2nd, up to October the 2nd, I have not had the year I desired, but I have had the year I deserved. What does that mean? Well, you know how we set goals for a year at the top of the year or probably at the end of the prior year, and we've got all of these plans. I know we all know that plans change and things happen. We all know that. Even when we make the plans, I think most of us are aware that it doesn't always work out as planned. Sometimes it does, and sometimes plans don't work out the way that we anticipate. So that was me in a nutshell this year. My plans did not work out as anticipated. I was away, came back on January 22nd, and then the end of January, I got a call from my dear friend's son saying that she had a stroke. So I sort of dropped everything and was there to support her as much as I could. Fast forward to April the 4th, while at another dear friend's mom's funeral, I get a call saying that she was taken to the hospital, had another stroke. And I left that funeral, stayed until the end, left, headed straight home, then to the hospital. But unfortunately, by the time I got there, she passed away. And that was tough. It was just incredibly tough. This was someone who I had a very close relationship with. She was an older sister, so she's older than me. I love intergenerational relationships. So I have friends in their 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, parallel to my age. And then I have friends who are in their 40s, 30s, and 20s. And so she was one of those older, wiser friends that I had, like a mentor, big sister who was there for me. I spoke with her the day before. We spoke for about an hour and 40 minutes, and then the next day she was gone. So that hit me like a ton of brick, like a ton of brick. It hit me. And I felt like it unlocked something in my body. And this was the third death for us this year. My husband lost a friend in March, and then my dear friends, who's like family, lost her mom, and then now my friend Sharon. So at that point, like I said, something was unlocked inside of me, and I cried. I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life. I cried. I mean, I cried a lot when fa other family members passed away. But I feel like there was some compounded grief that was happening. Not feel like I now know because I've worked through it. When she passed away, what I learned later on was that I was feeling guilt, like survivor's remorse. I was also holding on to other types of grief that I had not navigated. So I lost my dad in November of 2017, shortly after Thanksgiving. Then I lost a very dear friend the year after in September on the 25th in her 40s. And then I lost this dear friend on the 4th of April. I felt that all of that grief just came tumbling down, even though I felt like I grieved them. After she died, I missed them so much more. And I was grieving for them. We know grief never ends. It stays with us. We just have to learn how to live with the grief and have healthy ways to navigate. So I felt like all of that came back and I was just grieving my loved ones. But what was interesting, what I learned was I was also grieving things that had nothing to do with death. I was also grieving things that were no more, like closing my store that I never really thought that I was grieving for, but I was actually grieving for it. I learned that I was grieving for the change that happened in my life when my youngest went off to university and my role as a mom changed overnight. So I was no longer mothering in the way that I had been mothering since I was 19 years old. There was a lot of grief there. There was a lot of crying there. I think for the first time in a very long time, I cried uncontrollably. Dealing with the days following her departure was really hard. I didn't cry after I closed my business. But again, what I learned was I was grieving for all of these things. I was grieving for the woman that I was prior to perimenopause and the woman who I was and the mother who I was before my children went off into the world, before that umbilical cord was cut, that invisible umbilical cord. So I say all of that to say this in conversations in my community. We've spoken about grief, and there are so many things that women are grieving for that they are not in awareness of. Their bodies need to release, and their bodies are holding on to the grief that they've not addressed. And so, I am Miss Triple A, awareness, acknowledgement, and action. So I had to incorporate those three A's into my life yet again. I've done this over and over and over, and it always works, right? For me, I had to come into awareness of the fact that, here, Dixie, you didn't grieve releasing the shop and closing your brick and mortar and closing your online store. You didn't grieve that. You didn't fully grieve your changing role as a mom. Yeah, you grieved your daughter not being at home and both your children now being gone and being home alone as an empty nester. But I didn't grieve the fact that my role as a mother had changed. Now I had to mother differently. That was big, that was huge. And it created a lot of sadness, the transition from mothering in one way to mothering in another way was something that I never thought about. But there was grief there that I did not come into awareness of, at least when it happened. And so when my friend died and I started to grieve, there was compounded grief. There were so many things I was grieving. And so I wasn't just grieving the loss of my dad and my other dear friend and other people who came to mind, friends whom I've lost along the way. So much just popped up during that time of grief. Someone once told me that I am a keeper of sadness. And this year, while I was telling someone, another person, that I was told I'm a keeper of sadness, she said to me, I'm a keeper of memories. Now, here is why I was told I was a keeper of sadness. I remember every single person whom I've lost that I had a close connection to, every single person, from the first person that died when I was 5 years old to my friend and others who've passed after her. This year was something else. 9 funerals we've been to. 9. My dear friend was the third. And after her, there were 6 more funerals that I had to go and attend online. I didn't attend all of them in person. I attended 3 funerals in person and 6 funerals online via YouTube. Some were close, some were family, and some were acquaintances, but these were people that I knew and spent time with, and family members who lost loved ones who they were close to, right? So it brought up a lot. And so there was a lot of grief, not just for the people that are no longer a part of this realm, are no longer a part of this world, whose bodies are not walking with us and whose spirit have left and is roaming somewhere. At least that's what I think. I was also grieving parts of me. I was also grieving former versions of me. I was also grieving things that were no more, that I hadn't fully grieved. And that, my friends, was such a release, allowing myself to grieve all of the things that needed to be grieved, the people that needed to be grieved, was cathartic, was healing. And so that's why I said that I didn't have the year that I desired, but I had the year that I deserved. I deserve healing. I deserve to grieve loved ones. I deserve to miss them. I deserve to grieve the former versions of myself that are no more. I deserve to grieve the dreams and goals that didn't work out. And by doing so, I'm able now to be on the other side, moving on with love, with goodness, with grace, with the memory of these beings and the time that we spent together and the blessing of having had them in my life. That's what I deserve. I deserve to acknowledge that something didn't work out, even though I wanted it to so badly, it didn't work out, and then let it go. And I'm sharing this because in Qigong, autumn, which we're in right now, corresponds to the metal element. And the metal element corresponds to letting go. It corresponds also with the virtue of courage. And so I can sit here and say this because I have the courage to share with you what I went through. And I had the courage to lean into what was happening. And I had the courage to let go. So the timing is perfect. I've let go of the attachment that I had to all of these people, right? Because they are no longer here, especially the ones that I was close to, especially my girlfriend, who I was close to. Everybody else, I was not as attached to them as I was attached to her. So this autumn, this season, I'm releasing that attachment that is no more, knowing that I have her beautiful memory. And so that's why I was told by someone else that I'm not a keeper of sadness. I'm a keeper of memories because I remember. I have in here the memory of every single person connected to me who I know who died. Like I said, the first funeral at 5, my great grandmother at 7, my uncle, aunties, everybody, someone from the village who died. I know all the people from the village when I was a child who died. I remember them. My very first friend who died when he was 11 years old, diving into a pool and breaking his neck. Other friends that I lost in high school, unfortunately, for different reasons. My biological father who died when I was 14 years old. Right? He was my biological father, but he was never really a father to me. My father, my dad died in 2017. My dear girlfriend who died in 2018. My buddy, we spent half a summer in the south of France. She taught me how to drive stick shift. We drove to Italy and we drove to Spain, had a blast renting a truck, like one of those minivans with her 6-month-old, my 18-month-old, and my teenager with a paper map driving, stalling in the middle of the road because I could not get the gear out and causing miles of traffic. I mean, these were people who were Some of them were very close to me. And so I remember them all. I carry the memories. And so, yes, I do believe that I am a keeper of memories. But the beautiful thing about grief is that it teaches you gratitude. It taught me that this year, even though I know of gratitude, but it taught me about gratitude during grief. And it's because I'm so grateful to have had a relationship with my dear friend Sharon. I'm so grateful that my dad was a good dad to me. I'm so grateful that my dear friend was such a good friend to me and that we had those beautiful memories that I have immortalized in beautiful photos of me driving a stick shift, her teaching me how to drive a stick shift, and being in these different places with our children. I have the beautiful mentorship of my friend. I have the depth of love that we shared. So grief can teach you so much. It can teach you to be grateful for the past versions of yourself that are no more. I'm grateful for the mother that I was to my children. I'm grateful for the business that I started that had many successes and failures that I eventually had to close. I'm grateful for the experiences and the connections that it brought me, the lessons that it taught me, the strength that it gave me, and the courage that it built in me. I am grateful for all of it. Every last thing that I grieve and person I grieve, I am grateful for it. So I say to you, if you are grieving, and if you have not unlocked grief yet, I don't know, maybe it might happen in menopause. I don't know. This is just my timing. I don't know if it's coincidental or if it happened because the body shifts and changes so much during menopause that I softened. I don't know what it was. I honestly cannot tell you, but what I can tell you is that I leaned into what my body was asking and requiring of me because I tuned into the sensations of my body. And even though I didn't get it a couple years ago after I closed the business and after my daughter left in 2022 and I closed the business in 2023, it came to me this year. What I deserved came to me. I deserved to know. And so I leaned in fully. I felt like when I surrendered this year to grief, everything came to me. All of the downloads came. And when I connected with my therapist and we started to talk and we started to have these conversations, there were epiphanies that happened, aha moments that happened. And so surrendering to grief, whatever the grief is for, is healing. So that's my message for you today. Whether it's someone you've lost or whether it's versions of yourself that are no more, lean into the grief. Feel it. Let your body feel it. Be in awareness, acknowledge, and take action. And that action could be crying all the time, being weepy all the time. It could be spending some time more than you usually do in your bed, in your robe. It could be having some extended periods of you time and alone time. It may be taking a mini self-care sabbatical to reflect. It could be whatever you want it to be, but allow yourself to move through. Be intentional about it. Don't force it. Be intentional. Because for me, it was very intentional. Again, in Qigong, we have a saying, move with intention rather than force. Nothing forced is ever fruitful. And I think I've said this before, maybe a few times on some of the videos. So that's what I did. And the fruitfulness for me was and is gratitude. Gratitude for having had these people in my life, having known these people, having had the relationship that I did with my friend, such a beautiful relationship, such a beautiful bond that I will cherish, having the dad that I did that I will cherish, him being a father to me, my dear friend. And I mean, these are just three people that I'm using as examples because they're the ones that come to mind. And Sharon, she was the most recent friend that I had, and I would call her a best friend. She was one of my best friends. And then my other friend, Natalie, was also one of my best friends. So lean into the grief and let it heal you. Grief can heal. I know that sounds weird, but grief can heal. That's my message for you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow for video 13. Bye.